Hello, welcome to the Basketball Soapbox. I'm your host, Daniel Daly, and this one will be going over round one of the NBA playoffs. The playoffs have been good so far, but let's get into it. The Miami Heat are tied with the Boston Celtics 1-1. People are surprised by this revelation of the Miami Heat coming into Boston and winning game two, especially after game one, where it seemed like everything was clicking on all cylinders for the Boston Celtics. Game one, the Boston Celtics won 114 to 94. And looking at that standpoint of Jason Tatum getting his first career triple-double, the Boston Celtics shooting well from three, looking like the Boston Celtics that we've seen in the regular season. Really just out shooting teams with the three. Sam Hauser coming in off the bench, Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench, and just a solid outing from the starting five, from Drew Holiday to Derek White to Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown. And it just seemed like the Celtics, obviously their talent, their scoring output, their offense, which is probably one of the best in the NBA. I believe they finished second behind the Indiana Pacers. But looking at it from that standpoint, it looked like everything was going to be fine for the Boston Celtics, and that the Miami Heat were just outmatched, especially without Jimmy Butler in the first game. Everything was just clicking for the Boston Celtics in the first game. However, we get to game two, and it's completely flipped the script. And I told people before this series, talking with a couple of people, saying, hey, Miami's going to get a game or two. And they're like, you're crazy. This should be a sweep for Boston. And I'm like, Boston, one, doesn't operate that way. And you have to give credit to Eric Spoelstra. He's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the NBA at this point in time. I always compare him to the Eastern Conference. Greg Popovich, they're the Eastern Conference Spurs, where they're just zombies. They don't go away. You have to put them away in order to defeat the Miami Heat. And in game two, completely flipped the script on the Boston Celtics and outshot the Boston Celtics from three. In game one, the Boston Celtics were 22 from 49 from three. In game two, the Miami Heat set their record for 23 threes in a game. I believe they are third all time now, shooting 53% from the three, which is usually the Boston Celtics MO. Get up as many threes as you can, outpace them, shoot as many threes, and you're going to win the game. And that completely flipped the script for Boston. Even though they had a combined 61 points from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, it just wasn't enough. And especially with the Miami Heat's defense really set up to take out Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps Porzingis had a terrible game, shooting 1 for 9. Drew Holiday didn't shoot much better, a little better. And Derek White was ineffective, even though he had okay scoring numbers. The Miami Heat's plan was to basically take those guys out, because when the other starters play and they're hitting shots like that, the Celtics are difficult to beat, especially with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown getting nearly 60 points a game between the two of them. Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Kristaps Porzingis combined shot 10 for 29 from the field. That's 34% from the field. That's terrible efficiency. And then the bench didn't help. Peyton Pritchard played 20 minutes and didn't score in the game too. The Miami Heat did a perfect job defensively, making sure the Boston Celtics didn't get in the rhythm, didn't get those three-point shots that they're usually hunting and looking for. And when you get that standpoint from the Celtics, when they're not shooting threes, they're playing the two-point game, which people have been crying for all season, that they get inside the paint and score. But shooting the three is very important to the Boston Celtics offense when they do that. Very important. When you're sitting there and you're just getting to the points and other teams are shooting the three, and yes, the Celtics defense was terrible. That they should have closed out and made adjustments and got out there and took away those threes from Miami Heat. And I understand that Kristaps Porzingis wasn't stepping out, because that's usually not what the Celtics do against the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are one of the worst shooting teams in the NBA, three-point percentage-wise. So to sit there and look at it and see Kristaps Porzingis not going out there and trying to contest and get up on those pick and rolls, really hurt the Boston Celtics, and they paid for it. And the Miami Heat shot them to death and took away the threes on the defensive end. So really creating the Celtics offense to be stagnant. And when you look at that and you look at Tyler Herro having 24 points and 14 assists, that's something that Tyler Herro usually doesn't do. He usually gets the scoring, but the creation and playmaking for everybody else really, really, really helped the Miami Heat in game two. Bam Adebayo added 21 in that game. Obviously, that was a shocker for the Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics, of course, going crazy because, they have the history of blowing leads and stuff like that. And that's not sitting well with a lot of Boston Celtics fans. And I understand that, but we got to be realistic. The Miami Heat are probably not going to shoot like that again. Let's just hope that, because we know teams like to turn into the Golden State Warriors against the Boston Celtics. But overall, the Boston Celtics are going to be fine. I believe the Boston Celtics are going to be fine, and they just got to pick up that back up with that defensive intensity. Derek White and Drew Holiday have to be the taking the head off the snake, shut down Tyler Hero, make sure Jaime Jaquez isn't being involved and being active, and just control Bam Adebayo, who always plays well against us. Against the Boston Celtics. So the Boston Celtics just have to get back to what they're doing, because overall I wasn't even mad at the Boston Celtics offense. They were doing what they needed to do. It was mainly the defense of the Boston Celtics and not taking away the Miami Heat threes when the house was on fire. Very tough to win games when teams are hitting threes. It doesn't matter how many twos you get. You have to, one, up your offense and shoot. The Celtics have to get back to playing their game of shooting the threes and that creating opportunities for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to get to the basket. But you got to be able to knock down those shots. And the Miami Heat did a very, very good job with that zone that they always have and junking up the game and making things work. Get kudos to the Miami Heat and their exposure. That's what they're going to do. But we'll see what happens in Game 3 on Saturday. That's going to be today. I'm filming this early in the morning. But overall, it's going to be interesting to see how the Boston Celtics adjust to that and see if the Boston Celtics come out with the intensity to put the Miami Heat away. Okay, let's get on to the Western Conference now in another highly anticipated series that everyone thought was going to be competitive, besides a couple of us. The Denver Nuggets on the verge of sweeping the Lakers again, back-to-back seasons on the verge of sweeping the Los Angeles Lakers back-to-back. What can you say about the series? It looks like the same old story from the Lakers. You're sitting there looking at the Lakers, who would come out with a hot start, build up the lead, and then try to hold it, and then the Denver Nuggets will come back and storm back and win the game. That was more evident in Game 2 than the other games, but in Game 1, it was 114-102. Nuggets played solid, of course, 101-99. The Lakers were up 20 in that game and blew that lead, and Jamal Murray hit a game winner over Anthony Davis, an incredible shot over Anthony Davis to end Game 2, and you're thinking, if any game was going to be stolen by the Lakers and on the road and have a pick-me-up and have any chance to win in this series, it was Game 2. But once that shot went down, it was like, there's no way this Los Angeles team can have a chance against this Denver Nuggets team. We get to Game 3, Los Angeles again up a little bit going into halftime, and it just felt like it's the same old story. The Nuggets come back, have a great third quarter. Aaron Gordon playing fantastic, had 29 points in that game. You know a team doesn't have it when Aaron Gordon's running the offense. And that's not something that he usually does for the Denver Nuggets. Usually Jamal Murray. It's usually Nikola Jokic who's creating the playmaking. But Aaron Gordon was bringing the ball up the court against this Los Angeles Lakers team. And he's taking advantage of LeBron in his old age and overpowering him, getting to the glass, getting to the rebounds. Kudos to him. And when you look at the Denver Nuggets, they have 4 players in this series nearly scoring 20 points. I believe Aaron Gordon has 18 points per game in this series. And then Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic are leading the scoring for the Denver Nuggets. And when you really look at this team, it's like the Los Angeles Lakers, no matter how hard Anthony Davis and LeBron James play, they max out within 3 quarters. They literally have to play so hard to even have a chance in this series. And people are acting like they're surprised and saying, these guys are putting up good numbers, but they're failing in the fourth quarter. And it's like, when 2 out of your 5 starters are playing well, you're probably not going to win the game. And you're not getting anything from the bench right now from Gabe Vincent or Taurean Prince. D'Angelo Russell has been an abomination, according to Stephen A. Smith. When you look at that series, the Nuggets aren't really getting anything from their bench. It's really just their starting 5, and they're just being efficient offensively and taking advantage of that time on the floor together. Even the minutes when Joker is off the floor, the Lakers can't take advantage of the Denver Nuggets, and that's usually the Achilles heel of the Denver Nuggets. You just get to that bench and you take advantage of those Joker minutes that he's off the court, you're usually going to have a chance to get back in the game and put an imprint on the game. And so far, the Los Angeles Lakers have not been able to do that, even with Anthony Davis and LeBron James maxing out. They just can't do it. against this Denver Nuggets team, and they have lost 11 in a row to this Denver Nuggets team. And people have been making jokes, especially about the LeBron James picking Nikola Jokic last in the All-Star game, which was hilarious. But ever since then, the Denver Nuggets are 11-0 against the Los Angeles Lakers, and people are surprised. And I'm like, the Los Angeles Lakers have been towards the bottom of the Western Conference all season. It's not due to injury. Gabe Vincent was not going to be a factor. Let's just be honest about that. Christian Wood, all these acquisitions that they made have not panned out for the Los Angeles Lakers, and is going to end their season on what I think they play Sunday. It's going to be over. I don't see a possible way that the Lakers can win because Anthony Davis is playing as hard as he can, and he's gassed trying to guard Nikola Jokic. And the comments and the headbutting that he's doing with Darvin Ham apparently is not sitting well with the organization either. And this is just looking like a complete clusterfuck for the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James is playing crazy minutes, crazy production. He can't give you on the defensive end. And Aaron Gordon is taking advantage of that. Michael Porter Jr. is taking advantage of it. Everyone's taking advantage of that. Anthony Davis is dying on the defensive end. D'Angelo Russell's playing terribly. Austin Reeves is not as impactful. And there's nobody else to turn to. And I've asked Laker fans, them, what would you do differently? Gabe Vincent has been playing terribly. Torian Prince has been playing terrible. Rui Hachimura has been playing terrible. There's absolutely nothing Darvin Ham can do to try to change this series or get a win in this series. There's nothing he can do. Denver's flat out the better team. They're flat out to have better chemistry. And there's nothing the Los Angeles Lakers can do. Period. There's nothing the Los Angeles Lakers can do in this series. Absolutely nothing. Let's move on to a game that happened last night here. KD, Booker, and Beal have no answers from Minnesota. They're down 0-3. Anthony Edwards is having his coming out party, as people have suggested over the last season. And the Minnesota Timberwolves are proving they're one of the better teams in the NBA. They have been all season, and beating the Phoenix Suns should be no surprise because the way that they just have more size than the Phoenix Suns, they have a defensive identity, the ability to get stops, something that Phoenix has not been able to do. Even when Ant-Man struggled in game 2, they have not been able to do. So when you look at that, and you just look at the impact of the star power of Anthony Edwards for the Minnesota Timberwolves, he is a superstar. The way he is playing in these playoffs, everyone's saying it's similar to Michael Jordan, the way he scores and shoots, whatever the case may be. But you can tell when a guy is ascending into that next level of his career. And right now, at 22 years old, Anthony Edwards is doing that. He's already have 7 30-point games in the playoffs. That's tied KG for franchise most. What else can you say about Anthony Edwards? 20 points per game in this series, 7.7 rebounds, 6.3 assists. He's creating, he's defending, he's taking on the best defenders for Phoenix, whatever they're trying to throw at him, and they can't do anything. They just can't do anything. Now, looking at it from Phoenix side, they have not been particularly close in this series. Game 1 was 120-95. Even when Ant-Man played terrible in game 2, there was 105-93. And then game 3, just last night, 126-109. You're looking at that. There's just no way Phoenix has enough, especially on the defensive end, to compete with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I know people were picking Phoenix just because, they have more talent. And what we're finding out is that talent loses to a team that has chemistry, that has been playing together all season, and a team that gets down on the defensive end. And that is kudos to Chris Finch, their coach. When you look at what bringing in Rudy Gobert, and kudos to Rudy Gobert as well in this series, when you look at Rudy Gobert and look at what he's been able to do this season and in this series, not get taken advantage of on the defensive end, when you figured that was going to be the main mismatch for the Suns, getting Rudy Gobert off the floor and putting them in trouble. And even then, they have Naz Reid coming off the bench. They have Jaden McDaniels, who's a great defender in the NBA. People are saying he's Scottie Pippen to Anthony Edwards being Michael Jordan, all that stuff, whatever. But back to Rudy Gobert, what he's been able to do and not get killed in those situations where Booker, Beal, and KD try to take advantage of him, he has been able to hold his own. And that has been the most important thing for Minnesota, is to build that confidence. And that's something that they've been doing all season, been battling for the number one seed in the Western Conference. And when you look at that from that standpoint, you have to understand that that's diddly right now. That this Minnesota team with Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns is a diddly combination, because they're able to defend, play with size, and they're able to score. They have a superstar that's able to score. If Karl Anthony Towns stays out of foul trouble, he's able to score and create mismatch problems down low now and from the perimeter. So it's definitely tricky, and especially with Phoenix, who just doesn't have the size, just doesn't have the depth, just doesn't have the personnel. They just lost Grayson Allen to a sprained ankle. So you're looking at it from that standpoint, and I just don't see this Phoenix team having any answers. They just don't have any answers. Combined, Booker, Beal, and KD, they're only averaging what? I have it here at the bottom here. 1 second. 1 second. Come on now. 64 points between the three of them. It's roughly 21 points between the three of them. 47% from the field, 39% from three-point range. Those aren't terrible numbers, but they're not enough to beat this team. There's not enough there. They need to average close to 80 in order to have a chance in this series, and they're not getting it done on any front. And it's very troubling, because you're looking at the future of this Phoenix Suns team. Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal's big contract, Devin Booker's there. What options do they have to retool and get back to a level of that where the expectations of this team to be met? And the worst case scenario for this team, thinking was at least the Western Conference Finals. You're thinking that you're going to get there with this combined team. They haven't been healthy. The depth isn't there. They have limited resources. How are they going to rebuild this team is the question, because they're not beating Minnesota. They're not beating Minnesota at all. Sixers get on the board against the Knicks, winning the series 1-2 there. Sixers getting back in there with a big game from Joel Embiid, 50 points, 50 big points from Joel Embiid in this series. He's been a monster this series, playing on one leg, has cerebral palsy, which we just found out with one side of his face is not reacting the way it is, and that's why he's having these looks sometimes on the court that people were questioning, and he couldn't hide it anymore. Came in after the press conference and discussed that, but kudos for him for even playing through that. And for him to do that is just, this guy has battled through injury in the playoffs before and hasn't looked the best, but to have cerebral palsy, recovering from that left knee injury, and playing the way he is, and how well he is, and how effective he is, and how much guts and heart that takes for Joel Embiid. Just respect for him for doing that, and gutting it out for his team, because they really don't have any chance without him. Giving his team the chance with that 50-point game, 125-114 in Game 3 the other night, and just kudos to him and Maxey in that two-man game. When they run that two-man game, it's what Doc Rivers envisioned for, I don't want to say Ben Simmons in terms of scoring wise, but just that pick and roll mentality, him and Harden, which we saw a little bit, but Maxey's just a different level of speed and quickness, and willing to work in that pick and roll with Joel Embiid rather than others. And it has paid dividends. Joel Embiid has been effective. Tyrese Maxey has been up and down, but his scoring has been there for them. And they're getting good production out of Kyle Lowry, which is good for Philly getting back in this game. They lost the first two games, 111, 104, 104 to 101 in Game 2. And it was just effort plays from the New York Knicks, from all the guys, DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, who has been amazing this series, Jalen Brunson just being the sturdy hand and just playing downhill and creating havoc. But when you look at those guys playing the way they are, that's how the New York Knicks got the 2-0 lead. And especially without Julius Randle not being favored in the series despite being the higher seed, they have just been all heart, all getting on the offensive boards. Hartenstein, Mitchell Robinson, hopefully he's able to come back from a sprained ankle. When you look at all that stuff that they're doing, to try to compete in this series. You're just wondering in my head, at some point, is Jalen Brunson going to wear down? Just the way he has to play. Josh Hart is playing all the minutes in these games. And you're just looking at it from that standpoint of how in the world are the Knicks going to be able to control Joel Embiid once he gets going? And it seems like as Joel Embiid is getting stronger during the series, I think Jalen Brunson might be getting to wear down. He's getting guarded by Kelly Oubre, Tobias Harris, all these guys, bigger guys trying to wear him down, get him to get into mistakes. And if it's all about if the New York Knicks other guys can keep it up and continue to score and continue to provide that production and rebounding that has gotten them a 2-0 lead. Now it's a 2-1 lead. And you're just wondering if they can continue to hold that up over the course of this series. So that's the question mark for the New York Knicks. Now the question for Philly is Joel Embiid going to continue to get stronger over the course of the series? Is he going to be able to continue to impose his will, especially with Mitchell Robinson going down? It looks like, and we don't know when he's going to be back. But overall, looking at it from that standpoint of Joel Embiid just creating havoc on the offensive end, will he be able to get his mobility back on the defensive end eventually at some point? But right now, the way he's playing offensively, 37.7 points per game, 5.3 assists, 8.7 rebounds. The rebounding got to get up, but the way that injury is working right now with his knee, who knows if he's going to be able to get those defensive and get back to the defensive impact that we know he's capable of having. So it's going to be interesting. This is a really, really good series. It's been entertaining. Jalen Brunson has been a monster. Joel Embiid has been a demon on the inside there on the basketball court, in the paint, in the post, shooting at the three. He was hot from three in game 3. And you're just wondering, it's like the age of attrition here. What's going to catch up? Is it going to be the stamina of the Knicks, the stamina of Joel Embiid? We shall see. We shall see. But this is a very entertaining series. It's not a far series. It's only 100 miles from Madison Square Garden to Philadelphia's arena, they're saying. So it's like, okay, there's not a lot of wear and tear. It looks like the rest is going to help Joel Embiid. So we shall see. I really like this series. I'm having a good time watching it. Seeing the Knicks and the other guys step up. OG Anunoby has to step up for the New York Knicks as well. But this is just a great series, and I'm enjoying it. All right. Getting into this series this game 3 that just wrapped up the other night. Luka and Kyrie dismantling the Clippers. The Dallas Mavericks are taking a 2-1 lead over the Los Angeles Clippers. And in this one, I just got to speak how great Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are manipulating the Los Angeles Clippers in this series. Luka Doncic, 29 points per game. Kyrie Irving, 25 points per game. And you're thinking, how are these two guys continuously going after James Harden, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, Ivan Zubac, who looked great in the first game. And it's just the tail of that first game. You thought the Mavericks were in trouble because you saw how much energy the Los Angeles Clippers had over the Dallas Mavericks. And after that, that game seems like 20 weeks ago compared to the last 2 games, how the Dallas Mavericks have been able to manipulate and increase their defensive intensity on that side the last 2 games, especially from Luka Doncic, who is not a defender, who doesn't get after it defensively, was able to do that in game 2. Game 3, he still tried a little bit, but just the ability for those guys to create those lob threats for Lively and Gafford and PJ Washington, and getting that toughness from those guys that have the ability to step out on the defensive end and be able to at least try to hang with James Harden and Paul George. Paul George has been inept this series, and it's just like, not again. Russell Westbrook had a tough outing, got kicked out of the game. Looking at it from that standpoint, James Harden, it's really just him right now, and Ivan Zubac. Those guys are playing well for the Clippers. But Kawhi's coming back from injury, and you're trying to figure out how to manage to get Kawhi back into the flow of things, and looking at Kawhi Leonard and seeing, is he going to be back to 100% at some point, or even at least all-star level for the Clippers to compete? Because if he's not, And the production of Paul George is low. The production of Russell Westbrook is low. How do the Clippers compete other than James Harden just continuing to run these pick and rolls, continuing to hit Ivan Zubac for the lob threat inside, and just go crazy from three? I just don't see how the Clippers can manage a series like that. Ty Lue is one of the best at making adjustments and trying to figure it out. But while you're trying to implement Kawhi, who hasn't played in a month or two, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to find any consistency during this series. I just don't see how they can find any consistency, especially if the Dallas Mavericks are bringing up their defensive intensity, even in the lights of Luka Doncic. So to see that and see the way that Kyrie and Luka are just going at Los Angeles defensively, going at them offensively, and creating all these mismatches and getting in the lane and throwing the lob threat, getting easy buckets for their team, it's very tough to see how the Clippers can compete. And even though they are the higher seed, without Kawhi being 100%, without Kawhi being that Terminator that we usually see in the playoffs, I don't see how the Clippers can win this series. It's early. It's only game 3, but the Clippers got to win game 4, obviously, right? You don't want to go down 3-1. But looking at it from the standpoint of where the Clippers are right now and just the uncertainty behind Kawhi's injury, they're looking like he's gassed at times. Of course, he's trying to work his way back in on the court, but that is the biggest obstacle for the Los Angeles Clippers. How are they going to implement Kawhi back into this series to get them to a point where they can trust him long term to even potentially defend Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving and try to give them a chance on that end? Because that's a big question too, because it's like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. These guys are supposed to be two-way stars, supposed to be able to lock down, and now you have this injury with Kawhi. It's like, are we ever going to see this lethal lockdown defensively from Paul George and Kawhi Leonard? And if there's any series that they need to do it, it's this series with Luka Doncic on the tear right now. And even when Luka Doncic isn't going crazy scoring, he's finding his teammates, he's hitting those lob threats, and that's a disaster. They can't continue to do that. That's a disaster for them. So it's going to be interesting to see what adjustments the Clippers make and see if Dallas can continue this intensity, especially on the defensive end. Been able to keep the Clippers down under 90 these past 2 games. And Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, if those guys can't score, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the Los Angeles Clippers against the Dallas Mavericks. Moving back to the East Coast, we got the Pacers and Bucks. And is this the series of the first round? Dame Lillard had that big game 1. I believe he had 36 in the first game, just going crazy in the first half, shooting bombs away from 3 points. And it was just like the Pacers didn't even show up game 1. And it was like, all right, the Pacers dismantled this team in the regular season. I believe 5-1 against them in the regular season or whatever it was because of the in-season tournament and all that, and flat out embarrassed the Milwaukee Bucks, of course, with Adrian Griffin, with Doc Rivers. And you just thought the Pacers, hey, they're going to have upper hand in this series and be able to just push the pace and get the Milwaukee Bucks out of here, especially with Giannis being hurt. So looking at it from that standpoint and seeing what game 1 was, it was like, okay, Milwaukee winning game 1, 109-94, but it was just felt like it was never close at any point in time. Game 2 comes around, and Pascal Siakam's 37 just punches Milwaukee in the mouth. And Pascal Siakam, who was a guy who was kind of left out for dead in Toronto, and people wondering what was going to happen with him, he goes to Indiana, and they're trying to figure out how that's going to work. And he fits right in, especially just being able to score and be able to rebound and provide that defense, some type of defense for this team. But ultimately, his scoring, being a guy that can go get close to 40 points a night with this team, and Aaron Naismith stepping up in game 3 as well. Game 3 was awesome. Chris Middleton hitting clutch shot after clutch shot, and that's it. And that to force overtime, and then in overtime to hit another 3. He is just when healthy, he's one of the most clutch players in the NBA. He did it to Boston a couple of years ago But those clutch shots he's able to hit. And it always just seems like he's cool, calm, and collected when he hits those shots. I never see him excited. I never see him jump for joy, whatever the case may be. But if they're going to get this Chris Middleton Milwaukee that can score 40 plus a game, 30 plus a game next to Damian Lillard, and then Giannis comes back and be healthy, Milwaukee can again be a dangerous team. And I think that's something that they've been waiting for, Middleton's health to get back, him to get back to normal. And it seemed like they know that they needed him. He knew that they needed him this game, and he stepped up right big time, knocking down shots. I believe he had 42 in this game. And in game 3, and just looking at it from that standpoint, Tyrese Halliburton hitting the game winner with 6 seconds to go, coming down the court, hitting a floater, getting fouled by Patrick Beverley, making it tough on the Milwaukee Bucks. But looking at this series, especially with Tyrese Halliburton, I was concerned a little bit because I don't think Tyrese Halliburton has been 100% since that injury that he occurred right before All-Star break when they were trying to make a push for him to be an All-Star. Of course, the game was in Indianapolis this year. Looking at it from that standpoint, I'm like, this guy just hasn't looked right. And I feel like tonight was really one of the first times I felt like in a long time that he's looked right. Like he looked like, even though he didn't shoot the ball well, he was able to create that pace for his team. I believe he had 16 assists on the night. But overall, I thought they got top to bottom good production. Obi Toppin knocked down a couple of threes for them, which is a revelation. He's not usually known as a shooter, but he was able to knock down some threes. Aaron Naismith is playing big time this series. Miles Turner is playing great this series, and you're just wondering if this was enough pressure to try to bring Giannis back for the Milwaukee Bucks and see what he can do from that standpoint. And looking at it from that standpoint, if Giannis is able to come back and be healthy, that's a different element now that Indiana is going to have to deal with, right? Because defensively, you're going to have to try to figure out, obviously, you're going to try to put Pascal on him and try to figure out how to slow him down, but that's going to take the energy of Pascal a little bit. But seeing if the two-man front of Pascal and Miles Turner can slow down Giannis if he comes back, it's going to be interesting. And seeing if Giannis, they're obviously going to test his mobility and see what he can do defensively on the offensive end and stuff like attacking him defensively and see if he's able to move on that leg. Definitely going to be interesting to see if they can do that. But this is probably one of the better series so far in terms of just impactful play. Definitely just a high-level series with Damian Lillard getting back to form, it looks like, and seeing if he can consistently lead this Bucks team without Giannis until Giannis comes back. Him and Middleton, at least he knows he has Middleton next to him willing to step up and try to provide some help while this Milwaukee Bucks team is still trying to find its way, especially after the Adrian Griffin firing, the Doc Rivers hiring, and that roller coaster towards the end of the season, and then Giannis getting hurt. Seeing that production from Chris Middleton should give Milwaukee at least a little bit more optimism, especially next to Damian Lillard. And if they can somehow figure out a way to win Game 4 without Giannis, I think they're in a better position to win the series and have a chance to win the series, especially if Giannis is coming back. So it's going to be interesting. This series has been exciting. Indiana has been a revelation in the playoffs, playing fast, especially after that first game, which was an abomination. But overall, really enjoying this play right now from these two teams. Seeing Milwaukee trying to figure out, seeing Chris Middleton step up is encouraging. Seeing Indiana, a young team, especially led by Tyrese Halliburton, getting all these guys these shots, the pace of play, the confidence that they build, especially at home in Indiana, a small market city. Awesome series. Awesome series. The Orlando Magic get on the board against the Cleveland Cavaliers, heading down to Orlando, getting a big-time win down there in Game 3, 121-83. It didn't even look like Cleveland was there. Maybe they were out at Disney World with their families, whatever the case may be. They got their asses kicked in that game. Paulo Banchero looked like a grown-ass man, 31 points, 14 rebounds, and that was the big question mark. They got a lot of production from a lot of other guys like Franz Wagner stepping up and shooting. Jalen Suggs doing great on the defensive end. Maybe it was just Cleveland getting jet lag or whatever the case may be. I don't know what happened from Cleveland to Orlando. I don't know what happened. Maybe Cleveland just felt more confident, felt good at home, got to sleep at the crib, but they got their asses kicked in this series. And they were getting their asses kicked in this series so far. But to see Paolo Banchero step up and really have a big-time game, he's the all-star that they want and been wanting to see. The first two games are a little tough, especially with Jared Allen, Evan Mobley down there defending him and protecting the paint. Just tough for him to score. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland went inept in this game, game 3, and it's just total day and night, and it's just kind of the question marks with the Cleveland Cavaliers, like what team are we getting? Are we getting this team? Because I had high expectations for the Cavs coming into the season. I thought they were going to be third seed coming into the season. I thought they were going to be better. I thought they were going to be lights out. Kind of similar to Minnesota, where they're kind of building up that defensive intensity, shutting shit down, having Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, but they've had injuries. They battled back. They had a weird situation bringing Evan Mobley and Darius Garland back into the fold. And I just thought they were just going to flat out beat Orlando silly. But if Orlando could find some type of confidence down there and get their defense back, at least get some rhythm offensively, what we were able to do in game 3, it's going to be an interesting series because I like Orlando a lot with Jonathan Isaac, Jalen Suggs defensively, Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner, who played big in that game as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if Orlando can continue to hang and continue to build confidence moving forward. And probably one of the more disappointing series because we're seeing this OKC team step up with obviously SGA playing at a high level. Chet Holmgren, I think he's the first player since Shaq with 29 and 3 plus blocks or something like that in the first round series, whatever the case may be in his debut, in terms of averages and just getting that production from Chet Holmgren. And then Jalen Williams is a revelation. People are finding out about him, his two-way play. Kind of similar, a little bit more modernized Kawhi Leonard, I want to say. I don't want to put that out there, but he's playing real well. The ability to shoot and the ability to play defense. He's a revelation to the world. People are actually seeing OKC, even though they've been one of the better teams all season. People are actually seeing them now. After that big exhilarating game 1 win, 92-94, with SGA's last late shot in that fourth quarter to give them the edge. It's just interesting to see OKC just navigate this early on. And a good opponent because the New Orleans Pelicans are one of the better defensive teams. Of course, without Zion. But I'm really just not – OKC, just hurry up and put the Pelicans away. Reason why, because even if Zion comes back, yes, we all want to see playoff Zion. I just don't believe in CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram. Those two guys have been two of the more underwhelming players in the NBA for this team, for this franchise, for quite a bit. And yes, I know they were a 1 seed last year and they were playing well. Guys were getting hurt interchangeably, and that hurt their seeding. But whatever it is, CJ McCollum being a point guard at this point in time isn't the right move for the New Orleans Pelicans. I just don't think he fits that role. I think he's more of a secondary scorer, not supposed to be doing all the playmaking. That just doesn't work, but he has to play that role, understandably. But it's just a struggle to watch night to night. It's disappointing to see them struggle night to night. Seeing Brandon Ingram, I said he should be able to. Once they go back to New Orleans, they should send him, clean out his locker, and figure out how to move him. If you can move him to New York, you can move him to LA, whatever the case may be, just move on from Brandon Ingram because it doesn't look like he has that consistency that's needed to be that type of guy in New Orleans. And, of course, it's difficult to play next to Zion and CJ and everyone sharing the ball, whatever the case may be. But in this series where Zion's not playing, in this series where your team is outgunned, and yes, I know Lorenzo Dort is on him, who is playing great defense, probably going to make defensive team this year. They have Jalen Williams to defend him, other guys, various guys to defend him. But when you look at the shot output, you look at the percentages, and it's just like him and CJ just aren't it for the New Orleans Pelicans. When Valanciunas and Trey Murphy III are playing better than you guys, showing a little bit more effort than you guys, it's difficult to watch you guys consistently night to night and see that type of production and it just be putrid. Combined, they're 32 points per game. That's two players, so that's roughly 16 points per game between the two of them. 39% from the field, 18% from three. 18% from three. That is pitiful. That is pitiful. You're not even giving your team a chance. And yes, you are a seed. I understand that. You're in the play-in. Not supposed to be this good. Whatever the case may be, OKC is the number one seed. They're the better team. But you got to give your team something more than this as the number 1 and 2 options for your team. Like, this is pitiful. This is pitiful to watch New Orleans just play like that, especially in game 2. They gave themselves a chance in game 1. Some things happened down the stretch. Okay, we understand that. Game 2, y'all got your asses cooked. Now, it's only game 2. Let's see what you guys do game 3. But obviously, I just want Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum to play better, especially when you got guys like Jose Alvarado, Valanciunas, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy III. You got other guys trying to step up and trying to help. I think Larry Nance got hurt. But overall, you got to give your team a chance to win. You got to give your team a chance to win. And I don't feel like those two guys are giving their team a chance to win against this OKC team. Obviously, OKC is going to win the series. They're the better team. I thought this series would have been good with Zion on it if he was playing, but they got to do something. They got to do something. I'm just not liking the play from both those two guys, and it's a disappointment. Definitely a disappointment. But that will wrap up this episode of the playoffs, episode 1. Thank you for joining me. I've been away a little bit, family stuff going on, but I'm back trying to be a little bit more consistent. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, please. It means a lot to this channel, help it grow. And thank you for joining me. And I'm going to continue to watch the playoffs. Hope you guys are going to be here with me, liking, commenting, subscribing, commenting, interacting would be nice. Going to be doing a 2K draft, hopefully on Sunday and Monday. I will try to stream that. I'll put the link. I'll put all the description that. I'll put up advertising for that. I think it'll be fun with some guys that I know and been in a chat with sports related. So I think that's something new. And just try to keep it basketball. Playoffs are going on. We're excited. Going to see how this fantasy draft goes for 2K and continue to pump out more basketball content more since the playoffs are. I'll also check out Ring Takes. We've been going over WrestleMania. Backlash is coming up. AEW with Dynasty we just talked about. Please check out those videos as well. Thank you for sitting here. Thank you for listening, watching, whatever the case may be. Thank you. And until next time, thank you.